Welcome back to MVGA Podcast. Here at Make Veterans Great Again, my mission is to reach out to fellow brothers and sisters in arms to conquer our mental health together. Just a reminder, you are not alone. Today, I'd like to introduce United States Army veteran Staff Sergeant Dowell. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing today?
I can't complain. I'm here, right? I didn't sleep
That's
well,
it.
but instead of just laying around, I got up and went to the gym at 4 in the morning opposed to 5:30. So,
Uh, Started the day a little bit earlier. Thank God it's Friday.
yes, sir. So what was your life like before you joined the Army?
I grew up in Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland. So just a little nerdy kid. When I first went into the Army, it was the pastime. I wanted to become a police officer. So I'm like, hey, got some time to kill. Let me go in the Army, see the world. And 9 years later, it never occurred, like of going back to be a police officer.
No, okay. So you joined because you were just waiting to become a cop, or
Yes, yes. I was one of those kids. I was always good in school, but I didn't like the idea of college. I was tired of school. I'm like, I want to do something different. Started talking to different recruiters, Marines, Air Force, Army came along, like, hey, we got this, we can send you overseas. I had never been out of the country at that point. So I'm like, let's go for it. So that was the decision process behind that.
okay, that's cool. Where'd you end up in the Army?
When I finished with AIT, like I did AIT and basic training in Fort Sill, my first MOS was field artillery.
Okay,
Ended up in Korea, Camp Casey.
okay,
So then came back from Camp Casey, went to Fort Benning, got tired of field artillery, switched my MOS the first time, switched to human resources. After that, they sent me to Germany, deployed over to Kosovo, did some time in Macedonia, then came back to Fort Gordon, switched my MOS again to military intelligence, went out to Arizona, and then finished my career at Fort Drum.
okay. What, you didn't want to become military police?
That was one of my options at the time. It's just that the bonus for military intelligence was paying a little bit better.
Okay, okay. So the money called your name.
The money called my name.
Yeah, I get it. So what was your time like? Like I obviously you got to travel and learn three different jobs, but how else was your time in?
My time in the military, especially those first few years, it was great. You get in there, you getting to do what dumb soldiers do. So, especially when you're like 18, 19, you go to a country like Korea where the drinking age is 19. It's perfect. So you're having the time of your life, seeing different things. Don't have to think about much. But later on, as like my career progressed, start picking up some rank and everything, things changed. And then, I was in the Army before 9/11. 9/11 definitely changed everything for, anybody who was in. You went from places where all the bases were open to everything being on lockdown, you being able to go where you want to go. So, you got to get permission to go everywhere. So quite a change.
I could only imagine. So where were you on 9/11 then? Were you in Korea?
And not, no, no. When I was at 9/11, I was in Georgia. I was at Fort Gordon.
Okay.
At that time, and this is the time where I was doing with a military intelligence unit. Our part of the world that we were assigned to was the Middle East. So, it was a wake up call that day. So, I was working a night shift, just got home. Then, everybody like turn on the news. You see the news, and then I don't see daylight for 48 days after that. Like
Yeah.
you go into your building in our skiff, and you get to put your head down and you go to work. So
Okay.
that's it.
How long after 9/11 did you get out?
I got out 3 years after 9/11.
Okay,
So
so
I got out in 2004.
were those last 3 years like the longest, hardest years in a sense?
They were the longest, hardest, definitely. Like, the first 5 years went through without a with the like as a breeze. You don't remember it. Those last 3 years, you like, when will it ever end? Like, so it was definitely a challenge.
Okay, what was your reasoning to get out? You didn't want to go any longer.
No, so funny you should. It actually happened around January 27th, 2004. I, you know, I had just got promoted like, that month. I just went out and bought a brand new Acura. January 27th, I woke up. And when I woke up, I had this overwhelming depression. I can't even explain it. I had no purpose. I felt like I had nothing else to work for. And, I woke up that day and put in my head that I was going to kill myself. I called my mother, because, I talked to her every morning. It was one of those things to, say my goodbyes. I had a plan in place and everything. And, my mother ended up calling somebody, I ended up getting some help, ended up being in Walter Reed for 6 weeks in mental health, and when an issue like that happened, especially mental health, military intelligence, couldn't keep my top secret clearance. So, that was the beginning of the end for my military career.
Well, I'm glad it ended that way.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm sure that alone had a struggle because you no longer got to choose, huh?
That's it. And especially a person who like at that point, I in my head I had made up, 9 years. I'm like, I'm gonna do the 20. Like I had no problem with it, but like I said, long story short, I end up initially getting diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Later on, I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Something, I had no idea, no clue what any of it meant. So, and as I'm not trying to, you were a soldier, we're cocky, we think we know the world, we're the toughest people in the world, but you wake up and you
And
realize
then,
your mind's playing tricks on you,
yes,
you
sir.
know, it's a different world. So, trying to adjust to that. So adjusting to leaving the military, adjusting to a mental health disorder, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those hard-headed people. I'm not freaking bipolar. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm like, I'm just thinking the army think I'm broke. They need a reason to get rid of me.
Right.
Was my ideal. So it was that post-army adjustment that was very tough for me. When I got out the military, it was never hard for me to find a job. Like being an ex-military intelligence person, never was hard for me to find a job. But I was one of them people who refused to follow a treatment plan. I wasn't going to take any drugs. I wasn't going to seek any therapy. I didn't feel like talking to anybody about it. So I became my own worst enemy, you know, and jobs I had, I was, I was a double-edged sword for most employers. Looking back at it, you can see it. When I was good, I was going to be the best employee. But when I was bad, I was going to be their worst employee.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot I want to dive into, but let's just start from the beginning. So let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, did you notice, looking back, can you see that you were showing signs of depression and leading up to waking up that day, like severely depressed? Or to this day, do you still feel like it was like out of the blue, it just something snapped?
For me, like I like now knowing my patterns, that I can seek my patterns. If I knew this earlier, I probably would have foresaw. I would have seen that coming. But at that point, it wasn't nothing I was used to. It was like my first more so episode. So I wasn't used to it at that time. It's just, you become more like for me, I became more irritable. Irritability is one of my triggers. I started isolating more. You leave work, you go home, you know, pick up a destructive behavior, drinking, whatever it is, and you start isolating more. You start getting in your own head. You stop sleeping. You know, now looking back at it, I can say, oh yeah, it was a pattern. But especially with us, we weren't. I don't know what years you were in, but there, we weren't. They didn't push us to ask for help. Asking for help was almost like as a no go. It's like you hurt or you injured. Like go to sick call. What are you talking about? I can't get up and be like, oh, I'm not feeling well. I need a me day. What the? I almost cussed there. Sorry
Go
about
for
that.
it. You're all good. Go for it.
I'm like, no me days, none of that. You get up, you do what you're supposed to do, you make stuff happen. And at that time, I'm a platoon sergeant. So not only is me, I have my whole platoon to care, to worry
Right.
about. So
Yeah, so I was in from 2013 to 17 is a little bit different from when you were in.
yeah,
Um, I feel like during your time, it was more like don't ask, don't tell, like that policy, right? Like you don't want to talk
yes,
about your mental health. And then uh I feel like you probably got treated poorly or like respectfully or like looked at differently because you sought help and you got the help. Now, you said your
yeah,
mom ended up making the magical call that saved you, which that's
yes.
awesome. I'm glad you had somebody do that for you. What was that experience from whoever found you to getting to Walter Reed?
So so my mom ended up uh, at the time, Red Cross was big. So anytime overseas, she like, hey, if I have a problem, contact the Red Cross. So the Red Cross end up, contacting, my base and had somebody do a welfare check on me. So of course when like the MPs come, they like, they can, something they sense was like, hey, this guy need to get help. Uh, I didn't get to Walter Reed initially. I was at Fort Drum and I went to a local hospital, so I was at the local hospital until they can arrange transportation to me, for me to Walter Reed. And I have to tell you, uh, Walter Reed, great at the time when it came to mental health, but frontline units didn't understand mental health. So I had a commander, and a commander like, no, he are a soldier. We'll take care of him. Send him back to us. I went back to Fort Drum, and that was the worst time of my career. Every day my commander made it his point to point out how shitty of a soldier I was because I sought help. Like, hey, we want soldiers this. Don't matter if you're getting a 300 PT score, don't matter what you're qualifying with for your weapon. If if you can't deploy, he thinks you're a crappy soldier. And he made it his mission every day to remind me and the unit of what type of crappy soldier I was. I was one of them people who went from, being NCO at a quarter to the crazy sergeant.
Yeah.
So it was, very bad. So, that's one of the reasons that I didn't want to accept because I'm like, I'm not that guy. My whole life I've been this guy. I've been the go-to guy. I'm not this guy that he's making me out to be. So, now I'm trying to fight, the diagnosis, the treatment, because I want that old feel back, if that makes sense to you.
No, I get it. And I mean you were always that same person, but now somebody else's opinion is resonating with something that you thought innerly, right? Like an inner trigger. So like you're
Yeah,
trying to prove his points invalid instead of worrying about yourself, which I understand. Like it's a hard thing to stop worrying about what people say or think and to do what's
yes,
best for you.
yes,
Yeah, and I could only imagine that took you more of a toll on your mental health. So
yes.
how long from Walter Reed being back at your unit to transitioning out?
It took about 10 months after I got back, to go through the med board process and everything. Because I was a very unique circumstance. Although I lost my top secret clearance, I still had two other MOSs that I could do in the Army. So they were in this, like, oh, he can't be in mine, but we can send him back to human resources or field artillery. Then at some point they declared I couldn't have a weapon. So then that's when
Okay.
everything fell apart. So
And like I see both sides of the coin here, right? Like I see that the
yes,
command and the military is doing that for your best interest. And then I
yes,
see that they can do that to like almost spite you, like whatever you want
yes,
to act this way, you're gonna get treated this way, right? Which is
yes,
wrong, right? I'm just gonna pretend that they did it in your best interest,
yes.
because I want to see good. But it just sucks because I'm sure you really had nobody to go to at that time. Like no command was willing to talk to you, although I'm sure most of your command needed the same help that you had or got,
Yes.
but they took it out in frustration and anger on you. But
And I got really, with that, especially the last 2 or 3 months, I got really lucky uh, because of the injuries and stuff that was being sustained over in Iraq and Afghanistan for Fort Drum. Soldiers, they started a warrior transition unit, and at some point, my unit decided to let me go over to the warrior transition unit and be a platoon sergeant there, and we had this wonderful detachment sergeant, Master Sergeant Patterson, you know, and every day he will remind us, like, you guys have value. Remember all the great things you did for the military, but he was like, remember the army is like your little sister with a Barbie doll. They love you when you're fresh and new and can do everything, but when you break it, they want a new Barbie. So and that's the mentality that he put in us, every day. So that last couple of months, what having a person like that, to kind of remind you, he like look at your awards, look at everything you've done, don't let these last few moments define your career.
that's awesome. Sounds like he was a good like mentor and like showed
Yes,
you the flip side of the coin, the positive side of the coin. Uh,
yes.
for people going through a med board for like mental health issues, like what's some advice you could give them to help them stay positive and like make it through the med board? Because that is a lengthy process.
One of the things I have to tell people is it's going to be a lengthy process, and you have to understand that. One thing that I did that I regret is I shortcut the process, and because I'm like, do whatever you have to do to get me out as soon as possible, so I didn't want to do any extras. Um, that hurts your percentage later on, so they want you to speed through the process, give you the lowest percent possible, which is not going to help you later in life, so you have is a long process. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel useless. I i can guarantee that, but you have to understand this is what's going to be best for me, my family, my future self. you know I want everything documented that changed in me from the time I entered the military to now, so I can be compensated, so I can be effective the rest of my life, And I've seen it, all too often. Like, I worked for different universities for 15 years. And most of the time I was like the veterans liaison. And I've seen so many people who did what they shortchanged their process and they lost out in the long run.
Yes, sir. What did you? I'm sure you didn't handle it with the calmest mind while you were still in. What were some negative ways that you were acting out or coping?
Oh, it was one of those things like, especially before I went to the Warriors transition unit. If you made me out to be the crazy sergeant, I was going to be the crazy sergeant. Like, you know, at that point, I'm like, fuck your formation, fuck your rules. Anybody have a problem with me? Because if you make me this guy, why not become this guy? Because what can you do? Because you've already made me the bad guy. So I embraced that, which was once again detrimental to me. It didn't hurt them, it only reinforced to them. And I didn't realize that I was doing, like doing that, But when you're told you're the bad person, you're the bad, and you're like, who's going to check me at this point?
Right.
Who's going to do something to me?
Yeah, I feel like that's where the ego and pride steps in, right? Like you make me out to be this person, I'm going to be this person. And although it may not line up with your morals, it feels right because you feel like you're sticking it back to them, right? But like you said,
Absolutely.
it just hurts you in the long run.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you
So,
I know you were contractually an alcoholic while you were in, but like did you increase your alcoholic intake?
when I went in, and then that became my coping mechanism when I got out. Like I'm like, why? And this was my mindset. Why take these pills when this drink made me feel just as good?
Right.
Why do it? I couldn't understand it. I'm like, you want me to take these pills when I can uh, drink and feel good and do whatever, and forget whatever it is, like to me, I use alcohol as my crutch for everything. I can't sleep, I drink. I feel irritated, I drink. I feel lonely, I drink. That you constantly want to be the life of the party. What? So afterwards, I think my alcohol consumption got worse than it was. You know, and even when I went off to college, after I got out the military, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can find me with a bottle. I'm going to and I'm drinking at least a bottle of whatever I'm drinking a day, And when I went to college, I was probably the worst veteran student ever. I got good grades, but guess what I was going to have in my backpack? Those little shot bottles to get through lectures, to get through dealing with college students, you know I needed coping. I needed help. And that was my best friend.
Right. But it was also your worst enemy that brought out the demons.
It was definitely my worst enemy, and I'm not, I don't drink anymore. I can safely say, I won't say anymore, but I don't keep alcohol at my house anymore. I don't use it as a crutch anymore,
That's awesome. Good for you.
because I know what it do for me. But it took many years for me to see I'm a different type of person when I drink. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not. You get me and you get D when I drink, and he's
Yeah.
an asshole.
Yeah, I get it. Like my alter ego's Bob Mack, like
Yeah,
Mac with a K. And he's fun until he has that one drink too many. But then after that,
yeah,
it's like a loose cannon. You never know what's gonna happen. And then you just wake up
absolutely.
and all those negative feelings that you had are right back 10 times 10.
And worse, and they're
Yes,
worse
sir.
when you wake up. So yes, I
Absolutely.
definitely know.
So now we're transitioning out of the army and
Yes.
let's just hear this.
So when I first transitioned out the army, I was like, forget the army. But believe it or not, I went and managed restaurants. So like at the time, it was Orion Steakhouse, But restaurant management was not for me, because I'm used to being in the army. If I outrank you, I tell you what to do, you do it. Not in a restaurant world. So I got really tired of that really fast. I decided to go back to college at that point. Took me 3 years to graduate to get my bachelor's degree. And then after I graduated, I went and worked for the Department of the Army. My first job was working casualty assistance, and then I worked in the Warrior Transition Unit. But then I went back and started working for the college I attended a little bit later.
Okay. Let's talk about the struggle of the transition now. Did you feel that struggle instantly? Couple months, couple years?
Oh, oh no, no. It was instant.
Okay.
Like when I got out, I think within a month, like because I got med boarded and I got a percentage and I got this huge lump sum payment. when I got out, So I got out with some nice coinage on me, but I didn't know what to do with that coinage and, partying, drinking, going to, at the time I went back to Cleveland, but it wasn't, you know, you might see me in Buffalo, at Niagara Falls, just making trips, driving. But then after a while, you get hit with reality, hey, the money run out, what are
Yeah.
you going to do? And, you know, the respect that I got in the military. I'm not talking that last 10 months. I'm talking about, what you get, the way the world see you. The world see you very differently after that, and not that it's just by that point, I hadn't actually dealt with my mental health issues. I hadn't accepted, I got diagnosed with bipolar and 4 different types of anxiety, so, you know, I dealt with none of that. You know, I didn't know how to I didn't know how to be a civilian and I didn't know how to be a person with a disability. So it was a two-way struggle. Um, Also, I got married, a little bit after to the person I was dating in the military who was still in the military,
Okay.
so, I end up going back to the place that I got out the military at and now being a civilian husband to a military spouse. That was, you know, torture within itself. So it was a lot of different things that I was trying to cope with and deal with and avoid at the same time. If that make any sense to you.
No, it makes perfect sense. And are you still married to her today?
We are still married with 2
Uh,
beautiful children, like,
that's awesome.
so she saw through everything.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Because
Thank you.
honestly, no disrespect, I was thinking, man, he's in a bad place. He wasn't healed, and he jumped into a relationship to probably like fill that void in a sense. And like, I'm glad it ended up happy for you
Oh,
instead of
trust me, it's
negative.
been times where divorce was on the table, and I'm blessed that she saw through and was like, "Hey, okay," but it was several points where we like, "Hey, let's separate, let's live apart till you get things together," because like as soon as we got married, within a year later, my son came along, so we now have children in this, so and I'm not going to lie, how bad I was. Me and my son just started working on a real relationship. I was, my daughter, the younger, one, me and her got a great relationship, but my son, he feared everything about me. We didn't talk, we're just getting to a point where we can have a relationship. He's 15 now. It started like when he was 13 after the COVID stuff, like, and to get that, me and him had to move out from my wife and my daughter and live 8 months, just us in a place to make a connection to get to where we're at now. It's a beautiful thing, but that's a lot of, building that had to happen between us two.
Yeah, and that's hard too, like
Yeah.
emotionally draining. Like I get it.
Yeah.
What was your rock bottom, so to say, that made you realize like, fuck, I gotta start taking this shit seriously. I gotta take care of myself. I gotta listen to my medicine plan and all that. Did you have one?
I, I think my biggest rock bottom, is I'm working a job and I'm like I said, I'm your best employee and I'm your worst employee, and they got me on the worst day one time, and all hell broke loose and I end up losing my job, and I got a family to take care of. Because at this point, my wife had supported me and now she's in college and I'm the sole provider. And I do crazy stuff. I lose my job, and I don't know what I'm going to do for my livelihood. You know, that was my rock bottom. And I remember this is, I'm like, I need to get help. I went to the VA. The VA ended up put me in, an inpatient treatment, to
Okay.
get better. And I met a veteran there, Mr. Benson. And Mr. Benson, we're in groups and he listened to me every time. Then one day he heard me talking, and no lie, he looked at me and he was like, "You are stupid." And I'm looking, and he's got the straightest face, and he like, "You are stupid." And he start going back everything he heard from me, and he like, "You have every opportunity. You're a smart, driven person, and you keep doing stupid things." And at my bottom, being called stupid, going in your room that night because you get locked in your room and you think, fuck, I am stupid. How do I change? You know, how do I change and be better for my wife? How do I be better for my son, my daughter? You know, how do I not have the best and worst, you know, mentality? End up calling uh, one of my old supervisors when I got out. And my supervisor was like, I always knew something was different with you. You don't have to disclose mental health issues with everybody you work with, long as you disclose it with human resources. So my boss never knew everything that I was suffering with. He just know that sometimes human resources stick in and you know, but he told me, he was like, you are always a 1 or 10. You're never in between. So you're all in or you're not in it at all. He like, how do you get to be a 5 and stay at a 5 where you're never overly engaged, but you're never disengaged? And that's how I kind of work my life now. I try to be in the middle. I don't want to overdo it, but I don't want to underdo it. I don't want to not show up.
Yeah, you had to reset and get a new baseline. Uh,
Yes.
is that when you decided to cut back on your drinking?
Like when I left there, that was it. Like, my wife got rid of all the alcohol per my request, that we
Okay.
had at the house. You know, um, at, at the time, believe it or not, I couldn't find an Alcoholic Anonymous group.
Really?
I could not find, so I end up in a PTSD group.
Okay.
And that's who I use as my support, a lot of people with PTSD did have some alcohol dependencies or other addictions, and I used them. And believe it or not, the VA have a whole health program, which, is another benefit, so I use them to my advantage, so, and I'm not going to say I've never had a setback since I stopped, but they've become shorter, and easier to overcome.
Yeah, because you're growing and you're actually learning and just growing. So you're able to catch your downfalls or your setbacks. And so instead of it being like a 2 month setback, it's a 2 day or something like that.
Today,
But
yes,
yeah, that's
yes.
awesome because a lot of people view their setbacks as like failing or like that they'll never be able to stay sober. But you got back on the wagon or you got back on track to where you want to be. And it didn't last for months or years at a time. So we got to give ourselves more credit.
And that's one of the things I respect about you. That the first time I saw you, you were talking about a setback and how open and vulnerable you were was amazing to me because I think that's one of the things I didn't learn. I didn't know how to be open. I didn't know how to be vulnerable, so these setbacks became internal demons. I didn't look for support, and I'm like, here's this guy telling everybody on the internet about his setbacks. And when you do that, not only are you telling people, but you're holding yourself accountable and you're asking other people to hold you accountable. I was like that. you freaking amazed me with that. Like you
Thank you.
became my hero that moment.
Thank you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I still struggle and I don't always think as positive as I'm saying, or sometimes I say something. I'm like, you're such a bullshitter. Like, because I don't always hold myself that way. I mean, I am trying to, but that's exactly why I'm posting it. One, I'm trying to lead by example. And two, I'm working on myself just as much as I'm preaching for you to work on yourself. And I'm showing you I'm doing it by exposing myself. And like sometimes, oh, dude, it is scary sometimes, but I forget who said it, but there's a song, a recording that I keep hearing, and it's like sometimes all you need is 5 seconds of extreme bravery. So like 5 seconds, I made that video and I posted it, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm done." And then my
Yeah,
bravery went away after that, and I'm like cowering, not really, but I'm cowering in the corner, right? But
yeah.
I'm trying to learn like what I need to share, because sometimes I feel like what I share is like, that was stupid. Nobody's gonna relate or care about that. But at the end of the day, I got to stop worrying about that and realizing it wasn't stupid for me. It felt good for
Right.
me to get that shit out. And like the more I make it public, the easier it is for me to accept what I've done or haven't done in my life. Because now,
But
go ahead.
with you, what you do, but like I look at it, it's totally different. You were brave, and it might help me to be brave. I might not be at a situation where I can talk to you about it immediately because I'm at the start of my journey, but you help people start the journey, and you might not hear about it for 3 years, but you help us know, we're not alone. It's other people out here who feel this. It's other people who struggle with this. And that's what you said to me that day. Like you didn't say it directly to me, but that's how I took it. Like, holy crap, because I was at that point where I'm like, you know what? You know, it was one of those days where I'm like kind of like, fuck this day. I'm about to go get something to drink. And then you come across the screen like I just had a setback. And I'm like, shit, 2 days from now, that will be me. Thank you.
Dude,
you
that's
know,
awesome. Because that's why I'm doing it. Like I want everybody to know that they're not alone, right? And I'm trying to humanize you because you were your platoon leader, right? So like you
yes,
have junior soldiers looking at you like he's a badass guy. He struggled, but look how tough he is. Look how cool he is. And then now when those junior soldiers hear this story, they're like, dude, I can relate to him. Like it's Demetrius Dowell, not Staff Sergeant Dowell, right? Like you're a
yes,
fucking
yes,
human being and you're
yes,
struggling. Although our stories and paths are different, our struggles are so similar.
absolutely, absolutely. And what I say, me and you are many. We're a generation apart, like military wise. But I think the Vietnam guys have those same issues. I think the people before them have the same issues, and the people who coming after us are going to have some of those same issues and struggles. But we're different. We have different challenges, but that feeling, it don't go away, and less than 1% of the population can relate to
Right.
the experience, no matter if the experience was 50 years ago or 5 days ago, it was something that changed you. Like I tell people, you look the military, no matter who you are, when you join the military, they take a good person and teach this good person how to do very bad things, and then the line between good and bad, blur.
Yeah.
So when do we know what's the right thing to do? We're all our psyche has forever
Right.
changed. We'll never be that person we were the day before we went in.
Right. That's true. And I feel like there's always going to be struggles no matter how perfect the system becomes, right? I do feel that we need to start teaching more mental health in like
Absolutely.
from boot camp to transitioning, and then even in the
Yes.
VA, mental health classes should be offered. But don't get me wrong,
Absolutely.
even with these classes, you're still going to struggle because a lot of times, me, for example, right? I
Mm.
did not do my homework that my therapist sent home with me for years. And I constantly wondered why I was getting better, but I was having setbacks. And the setbacks, I felt like I'd get better one step and I'd go back two steps. So I would just end up in the same spot every time I moved forward. Right.
Yes.
Then I started doing the work. You know, the hardest thing to do is like after you've talked negative to yourself for 30 something years to look in the mirror and say, I love you. I am
That's
strong. I am smart. I am beautiful,
uh,
or whatever the case may be. And your mind's telling you, like, shut up, bitch. Like, that's so stupid. But like
that's it.
after you do it long enough and you start believing in, you start realizing like, holy cow, how I talk to myself internally is how I represent myself, how I show myself, and how I live my life. So if I'm mean to myself, why am I going to be happy in life if I'm just over here degrading myself or bringing myself down? And
Yeah.
just like going through boot camp or basic, it's mind over matter. Like if it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, you don't mind. Or no, if you don't mind,
If
it
it
doesn't
mine, it don't
matter.
matter.
Yeah. And like that sounds so stupid, right? But in
Yeah.
reality, it's the truth about life. Because what you're so like your boyfriend or girlfriend breaks up with you, that's all you're hyper focused on. So that's all that matters. 10 years down the road, you're gonna be like, dude, I don't even know why I dated that person, let alone why I was so distraught about them breaking up with me. But it's just
Yeah.
because that's what we allow our mind to focus on.
That's it. That's it. No, I agree with that. You bring that old Garth Brooks on unanswered prayers, these things that we want so bad could be very bad for us and blocking us from what we're supposed to get in the future. So yes,
Yes,
life.
sir, absolutely. So what has life been like? Or how long have you been on have you been trying to not drink as much?
It's been about no, almost 5 years now. So this April will make 5 years.
So
Yeah.
this April, if not today, should start a new calendar of just
Yeah.
completely sober.
Yes, yes. So and that's what, like I said, I haven't had a drink this year. I'm not even not even for New Year's. Last year, I a couple times, had a couple friends get married. College people get together, but it's nothing extreme now. I try to, you know, drink something that I really will hate.
Yeah.
So you don't want to partake anymore. Like, yeah, today, I've never been a tequila guy. I'm like vodka or something. So I'm like, let me drink tequila because I know
Yeah.
after this, I don't want anymore. Like,
Right. My problem, I don't have a cravings or anything like that. I just have control issues once I start. Like I call it the Pringles condition.
oh,
Once you pop, you
can't
don't
have one.
stop.
Yeah,
Yeah. So uh that's where my struggle is. And like so in 2018, I was sober for 2 years, started this podcast, and I was like, uh, I got anxiety real bad having recording podcasts. And I was like, well, I'm
oh,
not doing video. And I didn't even have video up. I wasn't using Zoom like this. So I would
yes,
be drinking while I was doing the podcast to kill the nerves. So like I didn't drink often or all the time, but it was like few and far in between. And then I would catch myself like, oh, okay, it's been a few months now. I kind of want to drink, or I want to drink. I want to drink.
yeah,
And then when I did drink, it just never worked out for me. Even if I controlled myself and I didn't get drunk, I still just felt down and blue the next couple of days. And then
yes,
like this last time, it was enough. Like I've known drinking
yeah,
has been a problem for me for years, but like I finally just had enough. And like I don't want to preach sobriety. Like if you want to drink, by all means, that's your life, right? I can't control you. But what I know works for me is not drinking. So that's where I'm.
yes. So what made you do the pot? Because your whole story interests me. Like,
Okay.
what got you to this level, like where you're like, hey, look, I'm not gonna lie, that take a lot of bravery, and not just that, you got the greatest name ever because it's gonna catch attention. Make
So
veterans great again.
okay,
Like,
yeah. So I did that strategically to do that exactly
yeah,
as a marketing point, right? Like I don't give
yeah,
a flying fuck about your politics. Hate Trump, love Trump, whatever. You already
yeah,
said it. You seeing the hat, seeing the name, it's gonna spark something in you because you either
yes,
love that man or you hate that man. And either way,
yes,
you're gonna want to talk to me about it. So then
Yeah,
I get to bring more awareness while already doing what I'm doing. I'm not doing it to offend anybody, but if you're
yeah,
offended, I'm fucking offended by the veteran suicide rate. All right. Like let's move on. Um,
yeah. No, and I knew the stat. I don't know if you've seen it. Like, where
Operation
we're
Deep Dive.
thinking that it was 22 is 44. Like, it's like
Yeah.
double. What? Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's yeah, and that's always as a veterans liaison. That's always been my thing. Like, veteran suicide is real. I've lost people to it. So
Right.
it's real, and so yeah, I even wrote a big piece about it. And gave my spiel on a big stage to people about it.
Okay.
Is real.
Yeah, it is. So the reason I got here, or it started, right?
Yeah,
I got tagged to do the 22 push-up a day challenge. I just had
yeah,
shoulder surgery, and I not it was like a year or two later, but I
yeah.
didn't do physical therapy properly. The first time I went into the doctor's appointment, he's like, it already stretched out, but oh well, like what? Anyways, it was on me because I didn't properly take care of it, right?
Yes.
But I started to feel guilty about not doing the push-ups. And then one of my buddies from the Marine Corps, he posted a meme saying, stop doing the push-ups and pick up the phone and call a buddy. So this idea, the podcast instantly came to mind, right? And then I don't know how long, I don't remember how long I sat on it, from days, months. It definitely wasn't a year, but it was like days or months. I was at therapy and my therapist
Yeah.
asked me, or I told her about this idea. And she's like, hey, do you have your phone on you? And I was like, yeah, it's in my pocket. She said, okay, pull it out. You got Facebook? And I said, yeah. She's like, okay, go on your Facebook, go live and tell everybody you're doing this. And I was like, what? And I was like, absolutely not, ma'am. Like, I am not doing that. I was like, you know what? I promise I'll go home and I'll record something and then I'll post it. There's no way I'm going live right now.
Live, yes.
Yeah. And and that was 2 years ago. I want to say it was
Yeah,
Veterans Day 2 years ago.
yeah,
And I've been working on it ever since. Um, Within the past 6 months to a year, so a straw broke my back at work, right? Like something
yeah,
stupid. I couldn't contain my emotions. My wife mentioned, like, how do I feel about checking myself in? I was like, let's go. So I checked myself in, got some help. Um, wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it took me
yeah,
out of the element and I was able to just focus on myself. I exposed to my social worker for the first time that uh my cousin had me practice kissing him when I was younger, like one memory. Like I have one memory
yeah,
of it. And that was the first time I ever told anybody. And then after I got out and I was home, and my wife's like, I support you. I just don't understand what is so wrong that like led you to here. And then I opened up to her about that. And she's like, oh, okay, like it's much deeper than just the surface value that I've been seeing. And my wife
yeah,
was very supportive in that. But I remember the nurse when I was getting ready to check out, she's like, you're going to be back. Just like they tell you when you leave jail or prison, like you're going to be back. And I was like,
yeah,
what the fuck? I'm not. She's like, you're going back to the same environment. You're not going to change anything. You'll be back. And I was like, no, there's no way I can't be back here. Then a few months down the road, like I went from one dead end job to another dead end job to working overnights at Amazon. And that was brutal for the mental health because I worked at like 1:20 in the morning and got off at 11 in the afternoon. So like I was never able to sleep. I had a newborn baby at the time and it
oh
just took
my
a toll.
gosh.
I ended up finding this program through the Wounded Warrior program. It's out in Boston. They have one in California, Illinois, and Alabama or Georgia. I can't remember which one. But the program I
Yes,
went to was called Home Base, and I was there for 2 weeks with a bunch of other veterans. Some were still active duty, some were retired, some were officers. One of the dudes was in there for 3 years, some were 20 plus, and then still active, right? Coming from all aspects of life, all different branches, reserves, active duty, guard, all of that. Um, and we did group therapy every day, and then we had an hour of individual therapy every day, and that was going to that program was very beneficial. Um,
yes,
I came back. Don't get me wrong, I still slipped and slot and like slide it all around. I didn't I still wasn't fully doing my homework that my therapist sent me or gave me. And then within the past 6 months, I finally started to like actually put the effort of doing my homework. And it's gotten me to where we are today. I still got a long road, but I have a long road behind me as well. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. So you did you get out like with a disability, or were you,
uh,
just did your ETS? You just ETS stuff.
yeah, I just served my time and I was out
Yeah.
like
Oh,
in my 4 years and I was done.
yes. Okay, that I love it. I love it.
I was,
So many people now are like, yeah, I got out because of this. It's happy when somebody just reached their date and can go.
yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure I could have got kicked out for plenty of reasons, right? But
Yes.
um, I got my good cookie medal ribbon, so
Yeah.
I slid through it most of the time. But
And what
yeah,
did you do in the military?
I was a combat engineer on the division side,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I got to
Okay.
play with explosives, but I
Yes.
never deployed to a combat zone.
Uh, See, that's the one thing. Like people think, and like so many veterans do that. Like, oh, I deployed or I didn't deploy. But trauma's trauma, no matter where it happened at. And you change no matter what. The training changed you, basic training changed you. So I don't look at you. And me and my wife is very different. Everything I did was like stateside. Like even with everything going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, everything I did was stateside. My wife actually deployed. So
Yeah,
but our experience is like, I'm not going to be like, oh, she's better than me because she went to Iraq and I didn't, or she's more of a soldier.
right.
Yeah, that's just, sorry for that tangent,
No, you're
but
good.
you were a combat engineer. Your training is more dangerous than anybody would fully understand, demolition. You guys are ELD when ELD is not there. You rig stuff. I can do it. It's like, so you're my hero.
Oh, well, you're my hero. I appreciate you. I really do. I find it very strong of you to be able to come on here and open up and tell your story as well. So, like, I'm proud of you as well. And I'm very grateful for your story, for you still be here and for you willing to share. And it really means a lot, like hearing your kind words and like talking about my big wavos and just coming out and just like
Yeah.
talking about this. Like I really appreciate it because it does silence that imposter syndrome a little bit, right? Like it's trying to
Yeah.
creep up like, he doesn't know the real you, but like, I don't know how much more I can hide. I don't really have much more to hide.
Uh,
Next thing.
and it's not about knowing the real you, but you know what? Like I said, we're in this social media world, and you see all these, like I want to say, like these fitness models. They give you their best photo of the day, and then the rest of the day, who knows what they're doing? Who knows what they're eating? So they're only giving you the best 3 seconds of their day, but the one thing that you do and you do really well that's to be commended is you start the conversation. Most people don't even want to be in a conversation, let alone to have somebody who start the conversation. That's huge. When I seen your thing, I think I got on right away and sent you a message like, hey, I need to really have a conversation with you to let you know, like, you started a conversation. And if you think that I'm not, you know, taking from what I hear from you or the different people that you talk to, uh, you is a wealth of knowledge, the experiences. Even I'm like, hey, look, I might see somebody on, like, like you had and I can't I'm horrible with names, but she was talking about, you know, the military sexual trauma, and I do have people who reach out to me and I'm like, hey, listen to this, maybe reach out to her. You're starting a network that's unreal. Like what you're doing is phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Like, yeah, I'm trying to make it more like socially acceptable. Like, let's talk about this shit because if not, you're gonna be that grumpy old man that's yelling at kids to stay off the grass and you're just miserable.
I
Like
got on my grumpy old vet shirt as you say that.
so perfect, right? Like let's get out and smell the grass instead of just yelling at people, right?
Yes.
I'm so tired of being weighted down by like my own thoughts and feelings that like if I gotta expose myself on the internet to, get through it, then by all that's what works for me, right? I'm
Yes.
not saying everybody has to start doing the same thing, and I'll support you if you want to do the same thing as me. Like the more people talking about it, the better. Like I don't care how it affects me or my podcast. Like the more people that are able to talk and be about it, like good, like help spread the word, help like I didn't know you until today, right? Like, yeah, we may have talked on
Absolutely.
Instagram a little bit, but like I didn't know you. I didn't know your story. And for you to tell me that like just by listening to me, well, first of all, you were about to go get yourself a drink that day. And then like you heard me spill my dirty laundry and you're like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. And
Absolutely.
that's the truth. Like you just need one person to show you the way. I mean, I could show you the water, it's right here, but I can't make you drink it. That's on you.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, like so what you're doing like is phenomenal. I commend you. Like you don't know what you're doing for all veterans. So in worst case scenario, in the absolute worst case scenario, just think everybody who probably reached out to you, you touched them enough for them to be like, hey, I want to have a conversation with this guy. This guy get me through one more day. And this being a day that, I thought about ending it all many years ago. And I'm like, you know what? He's the guy I want to talk to today. You gave me something to look forward to on this day where it's
Awesome.
not a negative. So thank you for that.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to be that person. And I genuinely do care, right? Like after this podcast, like we can either go on never talking again or we can message each other. Like I'm here for you. Whether you want to cry, uh celebrate, just talk, whatever the case may be, like I'm here. Like I talk to everybody.
And the feeling is mutual. I'm
Appreciate you.
here for you. I am, like I said, I am a little bit older. I've experienced a lot. I got a lot of experience, learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. So here for you.
Yeah, we each got something that we can learn and take away from somebody else, even if it's that person's purely negative. You know how not to be and how not to treat a person.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and you said you got one child, like one
I
newborn.
have two kids from my wife's previous marriage, and then
Yes.
we have two kids together. Well, we're about to have two kids together. The second one is due April 21st.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so we have four kids.
Oh wow. Okay, that's good. So you're not getting a lot of sleep.
No. Well, if you ask my wife, I am, and she's very frustrated about that. But, you know, my daughter's still a mama's girl right now. But
Yes.
when our other daughter comes, I'm sure I will get the older daughter and she can have a
Yes.
newbie.
That's it. That's it. And you don't work nights anymore, right? I hope you
No,
didn't.
I am focused on school and turning this podcast into a career because I want to be able to do more episodes. Like I want to do it at least once a week, and I want to like
Yes.
be able. I hate saying I want to make monetize this because I'm not in it for the money, but the money is what's going to help me help more people, if that makes sense.
I'm about to tell you, if people think saying monetize is bad, but that's social entrepreneurship. Like the best way for you to get what you want is to be able to produce enough money from that thing you do to support that thing. Like
Yes, sir.
to say monetizing something is as a bad thing. No, like I told you, I'm right now I'm in a process of starting a gaming channel. But my thing I did before was results through motivation. So I wrote a book about my experience. It's a workbook, that I make money off of. I go out and give, speeches, motivational talks for it. But that money helped me produce other things that I like. Because of that, I can do like, oh, I can send these underrepresented students, to sleepaway camps.
Okay, that's
So to
cool.
make money to do things that and this is, you're doing a service. We got, nonprofit and government offices who get a whole lot more to have way less of an impact than what you're doing. So to say you want to monetize it, I don't think that's a strike against you. That's just you saying I want it to be able to sustain itself and not me be at the will of other people. I want to be able to, do this all the time, bring in other people, like, hear these different perspectives. I don't think you're doing a bad thing at all. So,
Awesome. I love that input from you. So look, I just learned something, took it a new way.
yeah.
Well, while we're talking about that, then tell me more about how people can find your book or get you to speak to them, or let's hear your story now.
So like I'm one of those very, word of mouth type of people, So like I wrote a book, Results Through Motivation. You can find it, as ebook and as, like through Amazon or whatever. I also have Instagram, Results Through Motivation. I'm a very word of mouth type of person. I don't even look for speaking engagements or anything like that. It's
Okay.
like, but I've worked with so many people, the word get around that way, but like I said, I'm very self-sustained with what I do, so
Okay.
and it's one of those things like, at some point, down the road, me and you'll have a talk, of how to get you to a point where you can be like that. So we
Sounds
will,
good.
so if you reach out to me and we talk, I'll teach you, even if it's like, hey, how can we get you on a speaking circuit? How can we get you some motivational talks? Because if you can go out and get paid $2,000 for 2 hours, what do that do for your channel? What do that do, for your outreach?
Right. Sign
You
me up.
know,
I'm down.
Yes. So and you know, me going out here and doing motivation, like I've given motivational speeches, and I'm telling you, I found motivation in you. You became one of those people. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't even know how you came across my feed. It was one of those things that it was just like, I don't know if you use Instagram marketing or whatever, but you came across my feed when I needed it, and it was freaking amazing.
That's awesome. I'm glad I was there for you. And this gaming channel you're building, let's hear about it.
So crazy funny gaming, is I I say myself as a veterans, but I do anybody who have mental health issues. Like most of the people that I talk to, like we have chats going. It's just to push each other. There's a lot of people who struggle with like mental health issues, and a lot of them are gamers. And gaming is the easiest thing to isolate in. You go into these fake worlds. So I'm just trying to produce something where we have a network of people who are going to check in with each other. Oh, I haven't heard from so and so. Let me check in. A lot of the people that I'm talking to people from England. I'm in Florida, and I'm talking to people from Boston on a daily. Like it's been one of the best things. And believe it or not, most of my support network has now become from people from my gaming channel. And I'm only like 700 people in. So it's not even huge, but like most of my people that I feel is like, oh, who really genuinely check in with me are coming from that channel. More people from that channel than my real life. Like if that make
That-
any sense to you.
yeah, that's cool. So how do you find your gaming channel? Is it on YouTube or?
No, so I haven't did YouTube yet. I'm preparing my YouTube platform, but I'm going to be on Twitch and YouTube.
Okay.
In the next couple of months, I'll shoot you a message when I'm live. Right now, I'm just on Instagram. I'm self-taught on everything, so I'm teaching myself all the editing, I'm doing everything self-taught. But
Yeah.
I will be on Twitch and YouTube. It's already reserved. I haven't picked up the courage to go live yet. You know what? So you might have sparked that in me. And that's the only thing I'm waiting, like picking up the courage to just
Are you
go live.
are you gonna play after we get off here?
I probably will.
I
So,
I MVGA podcast challenges you to go live today.
okay. I'm going to have to take you up on that. Like,
What games do you play?
believe it or not, I'm it's cliche. I'm a big time Call of Duty
Okay.
player, but I do a lot of like horror games. I'm into the like super massive games, the Devil in Me, the Quarry. I love horror type of games, suspense, so I
Okay.
do sports, but horror games will be my forte in Call of Duty.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna wrap this up, but do you have any saved rounds? Anything I missed?
Oh no, like I said, I thank you for everything you do. I really enjoyed this. You will be hearing from me